All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Slay at Home Speaker Series. We're coming to you every Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I know it's a little earlier for you guys over there in BC. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We're stoked to have you. I'm seeing a lot of our Canada crew tuning in here and a lot of Colorado. I'm seeing Kamloops and Revelstoke, even some brethren down in Crested Butte and Boulder. Let us know where you're tuning in from tonight. We love kind of seeing where our crews are tuning in from. Roslyn, I got a lot of good memories in Roslyn. Um, cool. Thanks for tuning in. We really love kind of connecting with the community here. For those of you that don't know us, Weston is a small brand based in Colorado here. We make skis, split boards, all kinds of fun stuff. Really known for our split boards. We got some killer skis dropping this past season as well. But yeah, you can check us out at westonbackcountry.com. You can check out our Facebook channel. If you want to stay up to date with everything Slay at Home, you can find all of our previous episodes on our YouTube channel, also on our website. All that stuff's there for free, where all these courses are free. So really stoked to have everybody tuning in. Area 51 is tuning in right on. How'd the storming go? you can PM me that, buddy. Lance, thanks for tuning in, bud. We're stoked to have you. Again, every Thursday night at 6 p.m. we've got just a great panel this evening. We've had a variety of killer speakers this season. We've covered a variety of great topics. If you want to check out any of those previous episodes, just check them out on our website. Go to the YouTube channel, like and subscribe, as they say. And yeah, I've still got a few more episodes coming down the pipe, so stay tuned. Tonight's episode is on BC touring zones, and we don't mean backcountry touring zones. We mean the real BC, British Columbia. So tonight, we're proudly sponsored by Capow, Canadian Powder Guiding, based up there in Revelstoke. Big fan of that company. Avalanche Canada, our favorite forecasting center, frankly, even though we're based down here in the US. I got nothing but great things to say about the people at Avalanche Canada. So we're stoked to have a representative from AvCan here tonight. Kootenai Backcountry Guides, based down there in Nelson. I saw a lot of Nelson, so we're really stoked to have sponsorship and support from Kootenai Backcountry Guides. And then also got to give a shout out to one of our newest dealers, Free Spirit Sports. If you're interested in a Weston split board, you can get one in BC. You can go over to Free Spirit right now and pick one up. So we're really stoked to be partnered up with those guys this year, and just really hope to get up there to BC a lot more in the coming years. So we're stoked that you guys could join us. Again, we're going to focus on kind of the touring zones around Revelstoke and Nelson. Obviously, BC is a huge place, and we really had to pick and choose some cool areas to discuss tonight in our hour and a half. But any locals, don't worry, we're not blowing up any secret stashes, so don't worry about it. But if you have questions, drop us questions down there in the chat. You're going to have some really cool resources this evening, probably that are experts in your local areas. We want to connect you with them. We want you to be able to reach out to these people, ask questions. It can be public. If you've got a public question, drop it there in the chat, for all to see. If you've got a private question, you can even send private questions to us. Let us know. We're just here to help tonight. So without any further ado, my name is Ben. I'm the brand experience manager here at Weston. I'm based down here in Eagle, Colorado. Been a backcountry guide for just over a decade now, and just really love sharing my experiences and education in the backcountry and my love of the mountains with really anybody that'll listen. So again, thanks for tuning in. We are stoked to have you. Feel free. If you got any questions for me, you can find me on Instagram at Ben in the Backcountry. And Adam Zok is our next panelist. Adam is a frequent flyer here on the Slay at Home series. Adam, buddy, thanks so much for tuning in tonight. We are stoked to have you. Tell the people a little bit about yourself and what you got going on, buddy.
Oh yeah, you just can't call me a frequent flyer. That's a kind of notorious avalanche path at Rogers Pass, actually. Bad
Never mind.
associations.
Never mind.
But yeah, I'm Adam. I'm a split board guide based here in Revelstoke. I mostly focus on the touring side of things these days, but I definitely do some heli skiing as well. I'll do day tours either in the Revelstoke resort backcountry out at Rogers Pass, do heli drops, or some longer multi-day trips at lodges that are typically accessed by helicopter. And then you have a staff of guides, caretaker, chef, etc. So I love the variety of both the skiing and the types of backcountry outings that we have up here. So yeah, I'll be psyched to get you guys lined up with a few details to get you on the right track here.
Awesome, killer, buddy. Thanks for being here. Next up on the panel, we have got Judson Wright, buddy. We are very stoked to have you as well this evening. Judson, let us know a little bit about yourself here. What are you up to these days?
Hey, how's it going? We're on. Hi, folks. Yeah, based here out of Nelson, BC. I run Kootenai Backcountry Guides. Super happy to be on board here with Weston because Weston's all about the backcountry education and the learning, and that's what we're all about. I've been running Kootenai Backcountry Guides since 2016. We do a lot of day guiding here around Nelson. We put trips together all over BC. We go to Backcountry Lodges. I do a bit of heli skiing and a heck of a lot of Avalanche Education, which is our primary thing we're doing right now. And then I also help work on an event called State of the Snowpack, and I'll cover that later in my section. We'll talk about what we're doing here.
Yeah, buddy. Judson, man, thanks so much for being here. I know you've got a lot of knowledge as well. So you guys have questions, make sure you're reaching out in the chat as we're going through this presentation. We've got a killer panel lined up here. And last but certainly not least, we've got Abby Cooper. Abby, thanks so much for being here. We're stoked to have you as well. Let the people know a little bit about who you are and what you're up to.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Ben. It's sweet to virtually hang out with everyone, hopefully meet some new people through this. I'm based in Whistler, BC, which is definitely the coastal mountains, not so much covered in tonight's criteria. With that said, I am a backcountry photographer. I specialize in remote locations. So it's been 12 years now that I've professionally been doing that. So along my journey as a photographer, I've got quite a bit of professional level training. I get to hang out with guides a lot and take a lot of the same courses. Everyone jokes that I'm a guide that will never be a guide because of my resume. So I definitely have some experience, not as much street cred as these guys. I definitely go out with a camera focus and objectives when I'm in the backcountry. But through my career, I've been able to work with Arc'teryx and Avalanche Canada, who both support me in what I do. And kind of wearing my Avalanche Canada hat for this presentation, I speak in the youth programs during the fall when there's not quite enough snow in the mountains. And I co-hosted Split Fest this year, and I'm also an ambassador, so I help out with their videos and other speaking events for AvCan. So I think that's me in a nutshell. I'm stoked to hang out and let these two lead the charge and chime in when it makes sense.
Awesome. Abby, thanks so much again for attending. We are beyond stoked to have you. So, all right, we'll kind of kick it off here. Tonight we are going to be discussing a lot of really cool zones. You guys can see the zones we're going to cover here this evening. If you do have questions on other areas, again, feel free to throw up some questions in the chat. Really at the end of the presentation will probably be the best time to ask any questions that aren't specific to these zones. While we're going through the zones, feel free to chime in the chat there and let us know if you have a specific question on Rogers Pass or, on Whitewater Backcountry. Let us know. We're happy to answer questions live. That's the whole point of doing this thing live. Before we get started, though, we are going to kind of go over certain things that you need to be aware of before you go into the backcountry. The previous episodes of Slay at Home series, we've covered a ton of this stuff, but we're going to go over preparation, Avied resources, and then even a brief overview of BC and why it's so special to everybody before we get into the goodies here. So That being said, again, backcountry, it's a big deal. I don't even like the term beginner backcountry, right? So we say that, you need to be an expert with your gear. You need to have all the right gear before you get into the backcountry. Adam did a solid 2.5 hours with us a couple months back on gear. So if you have questions on gear, check out that episode of the Slay at Home series. Avalanche Education. This one is, if you're even thinking about going into the backcountry, you should know what this is. Ideally, you've taken, a level 1, an AST1, or even better, at the least, a companion rescue, right? So we've done, again, hours and hours of talks on Avalanche Education. Check out that episode. If you've got questions, better yet, ask Abby. We've got someone who represents Av Canada here. Hopefully we can answer a few questions. You've also got 2 fantastic guides. If you have questions, please ask us about Avalanche Education. I mean, I just can't say that enough. It's very, very important. If you're going to go into the backcountry, be safe, have that education baseline. Know your skill level, know your fitness. Some of the lines we're talking about, the zones, we're talking 1,000 vertical meters, a lot of vertical. So you need to have that fitness level. You need to know how to check the forecast, both the avalanche forecast and the weather forecast, right? And you really need to know how to correctly plan a trip. That's not just being like, hey, so-and-so, let's go rip, this pillow line this morning, right? It's really putting in the time, having a plan A, B, and C, making sure that you come home safely, right? And so we've done, again, full episodes on trip planning, online resources, how to plan a trip using CalTopo, Hillmap, Gaia, you name it. We've covered it in the Slay at Home series thus far. So I just want that to be out there. We're not just saying go into the backcountry, right? Really, it's the opposite. We're covering terrain and different zones at the end, because there's so much that you need to learn before you ever even step foot into the backcountry. Use us as a resource if you need it, right? And when you're in the backcountry, that plan A, B, and C that I just mentioned, it comes into play. There's a lot of things from group dynamics to weather to, just red flags that you see that could change your line choice when you're out there. So also very important, assessment over assumption, right? When you get into the backcountry. One thing I do want to mention as someone down here in the US, there's certain travel restrictions, right now due to COVID. Please respect them. Please be smart. If you're in the US, you're not going into Canada right now. And maybe this is great information for next year, right? And so anytime you're traveling to go on a backcountry trip, you have to know the travel restrictions. Please respect them. It's very important. And when in doubt, go with a guide. We'll kind of get into why, specifically in these areas, going out with a guide might really be the best use of your time and money. But that's my thing. When in doubt, go with the guide. If you want to find sick pillow lines like the ones that I'm standing right in front of right here in this photo, they're hard to find. You might want to, book a guide to find some really cool terrain, save yourself some trouble. So I'll let Abby kind of discuss a little bit here about Avalanche Canada and what they're up to.
Oh, sounds good. I thought that I was muted. Yeah, I guess as far as Avalanche Canada goes, it's so second nature to us up here. So for everyone who's tuning into the States or from the States, or maybe even just new to splitboarding that's still getting familiar with this in Canada, and Avalanche Canada is a nonprofit organization, and their biggest outward facing role that we utilize all the time is producing up-to-date daily forecasts and bulletins. So if you're going to go in the backcountry, they have a very consistent across the country platform and system for gathering information and putting it out to easy to read forecasts that include detailed problems. There's weather forecasts, the danger ratings. It's also an incredible learning resource, especially for anyone anywhere. If you don't live in a zone that's forecasted for, just go and check out avalanche.ca, and you can pretty much like prepare for your first avalanche class. You can do a little refresher online. You can practice terrain management. Just the resources for education are endless on there. It's all free. And the goal is that everyone gets out, has a good time, and comes back safe. So they're doing everything they possibly can to make sure that we're all on the same page when we're in the mountains, because even if we're not with the group above us on the skin track, we all affect each other. So yeah, just a great platform to connect all backcountry users.
Awesome. And you can visit them at avalanche.ca, and they've got a wealth of resources. So thanks again. So, British Columbia, very, very special place. This is one of the first places I ever really stepped out into some bigger backcountry lines after, doing hut trips down here in Colorado. And this is my first big trip, and it just blew my mind, frankly. There's a wealth of reasons to visit this place, and I can understand why our panelists all live there. So if you would, tell us a little bit about, why BC is special to you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I could start. Yeah, so I actually spent most of my childhood and early split boarding career in the US, living in California, and then eventually in Jackson, Wyoming. And once I moved to Jackson, I loved it. I thought I might stay there forever. I still am of the opinion that it's my favorite skiing and snowboarding in the lower 48. But I was born in Canada and realized that I could come up here, live here, work here, shred here. And some of the big things that sold me on British Columbia were just the expansiveness of the terrain. It's pretty enormous, the just acreage of mountains that we're working with here. It's nuts, especially compared to Jackson. Like, I love it, don't get me wrong, but the Tetons are this compact little range, and here there's just, dozens of lifetimes worth of split boarding to go explore. So here it really does feel endless. And just the terrain is incredibly varied. I think we have some of the best tree skiing in the world, sometimes through giant cedars, really well spaced, really, really cool pillow lines, and then some top-notch alpine. We've got like big faces and couloirs and quite a lot of glaciated terrain too. It's all quite interesting, and especially for a more advanced ski tour or split boarder, it really has a ton to offer. And because of its variety, has something great for almost any day or any type of snow conditions. And we're also lucky enough to have a ton of snow, and where I live, it's a great balance between a quantity of snow that's quite substantial and cool enough temps to keep great surface conditions. So I don't know what else I'd be looking for, honestly. I think this is kind of where it's at.
Yeah, I think you guys figured it out for sure. I'm still trying to figure out how to get up there. Judson, what do you love about BC, buddy?
I'd say like the first thing that really hooked me here was actually the tree skiing. Like I moved to the Kootenays and moved to Roslyn, and just realizing how incredibly good the tree skiing is here. And I love the Alpine. Alpine skiing's amazing, but for me, slaying deep pow in the trees is kind of my bag, and having the forest is featured with as many open trees as we have here is truly mind-blowing. And most people do get their minds blown because they're like, I hate trees, I don't want to go in trees. And we get a lot of guests coming here being like, don't take me in the trees, and then they do one run in the trees here and they're like, oh, can we please do that again, over and over and over again. And yeah, so it's that plus the long fall line, and how much of the terrain is actually skiable is really quite impressive when you've got 24 to 2,800 meter peaks at Rogers Pass, and there's good skiing down to 1,300 meters. And in places in Revelstoke, you just ski pow down to 1,000 meters, 700 meters, and so you're talking about these 3,000-foot runs, right? And for a lot of some of our winners, when they're good, is the conditions are good from the top to the bottom. So that's pretty awesome. I grew up dreaming about coming here, and it blew me away compared to what I thought I was going to get. It was better than what I thought.
Ooh, awesome, buddy. That's killer. Abby, tell us a little bit about why you love British Columbia so much.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in the Calgary area, so in Alberta, which is just on the other side of the Canadian Rockies. And my entire childhood was like as many days a week as possible, I was getting into the Rockies to go snowboarding, and longer trips were always interior BC. And it just was like a magnetic pull since I was a kid to move to BC, to be as close as possible to the mountains. And as I developed my photography career, I actually, on the opposite path of Judson, I am smitten by the Alpine and glaciers. Like, I cannot get enough of moody peaks, big glaciers. Like, yeah, they just, I'm obsessed. And being here on the coast, it's, we have a lot of glaciers, and being able to ski down to the ocean every once in a while when you get into some of the remote ranges it's so magical. But yeah, I think it's definitely the terrain that brought me here and why I ended up being on the coast. With that said, in any other normal winter, I would be probably spending at least half of it interior BC, spending a lot of time at the lodges, like heli access lodges, and then touring in the Alpine or just below tree line and things like that around Revelstoke. So yeah, it's got everything I ever wanted here. I no reason to leave.
Love it. Yeah, I agree with all those things, and I would also say, the communities that I've come across there in Roslyn, Revelstoke, Nelson, just amazing human beings, I have to say. I've had some of the most fun trips I've ever been on, and stayed extra days. I had to sneak out of Roslyn when we went there on a road trip because we had so much fun with the locals, and ended up staying at their houses partying all night long. So lot of great human beings in these places too. You want to have fun, definitely hang out with some of the locals there. So here is an overview of BC. You can see there's a variety of different mountain ranges. Again, we're going to kind of focus on the Selkirks and the Monashees this evening. But if you do have questions on any of these other places, let us know. We'll do our best to answer questions. We couldn't cover all of this in one evening if we've tried. So I'll kind of kick it over. This is a great example of some of the just mind-blowing terrain that you can find out there. Adam, tell us, this is your backyard, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is some of Rogers Pass here. So this is some of the more solar terrain. In the foreground on the left there, you've got Mount Tupper with a bunch of, pretty severe couloirs actually that go all the way down to the highway at Valley Bottom. Those are some of the paths that run most frequently, I think the most frequently out of anything they record at Rogers Pass. So yeah, some very real terrain there for sure. Steep, solar. In the back, you've got Mount Rogers.
Sorry.
On the kind of left in the back, and then Swiss. Great couloir skiing on Swiss, and a big, pretty extreme hanging face on the backside there. But yeah, this just shows a bit of the flavor of the general Alpine. Generally a deep snowpack. That's actually a glacier in the low angle terrain in the back there, but it's so plugged you can't see any holes or anything. Yeah, there's tons more to the pass, but that's a great little representative shot of the Alpine.
It's gorgeous.
And then this is from more the golden side of things. So as far as the Selkirks go, which is where Rogers Pass is, Revelstoke is on the west side and Golden is on the east side. So the golden side is generally a little bit colder and gets a bit less precip. And, some persistent avalanche problems may stick around a little bit longer or form more readily there. But when, freezing levels and temperatures are an issue, that is kind of the place to be for ski quality. So it's always going to depend on the exact nature of the snowpack and what you're seeking out, what you're worried about at that time. But tons more wicked skiing out there, especially later in the season, I think, like March, April, some of that can be unreal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one kind of final note for anyone traveling to these areas, just be a responsible visitor. Our big thing is you might be in a national or provincial park. Make sure you know all the rules and regulations. Respect everybody out there. A lot of this stuff is public land. Everyone has the same rights to be out there, and just follow the rules. Be smart. Anyone else have anything to add right here on just being a responsible visitor? We get it.
That's good. Yeah.
Perfect. And if you don't know the regulations around the area you're going to, it's always your responsibility. Google it.
Yeah.
You can find this stuff pretty easy.
Yeah. Leave no trace, really, in the backcountry, regardless of if you're in a park or not in a park. Don't leave no trace.
Absolutely. Well, all right, and then, a couple more quick resources. Powder Highway, if anyone's planning a trip up, they're not familiar with BC, there is an amazing loop you can do, and you can hit up, everything from all of these great resorts to different huts and lodges. Definitely go to powderhighway.com. It's a great resource for planning a trip. Definitely recommend that. And yeah, Backcountry Huts. This is another thing that you should certainly be considering if you're going and you're going to spend, a week, 2 weeks in BC. I mean, a hut experience are some of the best things that you can book. Adam, tell us a little bit about the huts, there in your area.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways you can get a roof over your head in the backcountry out there. And these ACC, Alpine Club of Canada huts are kind of the simpler of the two versions. So these are generally booked online through their website. Some of them fill up pretty quickly. The most popular ones, like say the Asulkin at Rogers Pass, you probably want to start looking at that about a year in advance for peak season. This year, as with many places, you kind of have to book the whole thing with your crew due to COVID, but normally you can book a partial hut if you wish. Yeah, they're relatively primitive, but they're still quite comfortable, warm, enough space to move around, dry out your gear, that kind of thing. We have a few of these at Rogers Pass. There's tons out in the Rockies. Most of them are in places that you can walk to and bring, some basic stuff for overnighting without needing a tent or super warm sleeping bag or anything like that. There are a few that you can take a helicopter to as well. So Fairy Meadows is a great example, the Bill Putnam hut. You got to fly to that one. Yeah, there's a handful of other ones out there too, like the Great Cairn, most people fly to, for example. And there's some out in Judson's neck of the woods in the Coots too. But yeah, these are usually relatively cheap, maybe like 25 to 50 bucks a night Canadian, something in that ballpark. But yeah, a great way to just start your day at tree line or so usually.
Copy that. Killer. Yeah, this is from a trip I took 10 years ago. The Wheeler Hut. Great access, kind of get you a lay of the land. Really cool experience there. Got to meet a lot of people from the Alpine Club of Canada too there. Really cool.
Yeah, that's a big one and pretty close to the road. So you just can stay at Rogers Pass, basically, lug in whatever you want. Yeah, a lot of them are a further walk than that, but that's just like the hotel of Rogers Pass almost. It serves a pretty good purpose. Yeah, your other option for getting a roof over your head out there are the Backcountry Lodges. So these are, a more upscale experience typically. They're pretty much all accessed by helicopter. There's one or two by snowcat as well. And yeah, again, they tend to be perched at tree lines, so you can ski the forest below when that's appropriate, or go up into the Alpine when you have good viz. So they're usually put in places with good varied terrain. Generally, yeah, you're going to fly there in a helicopter. They're usually guided and catered. It is possible to do a self-guided, self-catered show at a handful of them, but that's increasingly hard to find. But most of the time you'll have roughly 12 people or so staying there. It does vary lodge to lodge, with a couple guides, a caretaker, and a chef. And usually the chefs are, they're not whipping up freeze-dried meals for you. It's better than I eat at home, right? So it can be a really incredible experience. And as far as ski touring goes, this is kind of my favorite way to do it. You get to go off the beaten path a bit more. There's no random tracks from the public. It's kind of all your zone, just like feels kind of exclusive and like you're in your own little secret spot. It's really good living.
Yeah, just to echo that for a second, Adam, that's why I like to go there for photo shoots, because if you commit to one zone for a week or however long it takes to fly into a lodge, you've got every aspect, a bunch of different terrain options, elevation, and it's not a huge commitment from the valley to get up to one aspect. It's like it's all at your fingertips. So if you're coming on a sampler trip to BC, it's a great place, or a great way to do it is lodge based.
And you're not going to get some goober sneaking into the background of your shot, tumbling down the slope or anything. Hey, like, it's yours.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so this one is a picture of the Blanket Glacier Chalet. That one's close to Revelstoke, and I work there quite a bit. I spend a lot of my winter there typically. I'll also do some trips at the Golden Alpine Holidays huts. I've done Sunrise in the past, and like this year and in future years, I'll be at Meadow and Sentry. Yeah, I'll often team up with another guide for that, or run my own trips out there. So it's really fun to just check out a handful of the varied options out there. They really are incredible and each have their own flavor. And if you guys are thinking of doing these types of trips, feel free to hit me up. And based on the type of skiing you like, I could probably recommend a good place for you to investigate further. What about you, Judson? What are you into?
Yeah, I can't say enough about our lodge scene. It is really like the thing I think that separates BC from elsewhere is how incredible our backcountry hut and lodge scene is. It's unparalleled pretty much. And they are all over the place, but it is really hard to get in. There is waiting lists going on. If you want to book hut trips, you got to be on it. But in the end, like the values there, you know, you're mentioning, yeah, it's a bit more money. It's exclusive. It's not that much money. It's like fully catered, fully guided trips run anywhere between 2,500 and 3,000 for 7 days. Like it's ridiculous. Like it's just an incredible experience. That's amazing. Yeah.
Killer. Yeah, you guys definitely have one up on us as far as heli access lodges. Just, you know, again, going to powderhighway.com is a great resource. You can see 20 amazing backcountry lodges just on this loop. And I'm sure they missed some, but yeah, if you're planning a trip up to BC, I think, you know, a trip to one of these lodges should be a no-brainer. So, and on that note, you know, going with a guide, again, we've got, you know, a couple great guides here tonight. I know how I feel about booking guides. I think it's one of the smartest things you can do in a new area, but tell us a little bit about why, you know, you might get a little more out of your trip by booking a guide, especially in one of these giant zones.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, it's what we do, and it's what I say, and a lot of what we tell people is like we help you make the most out of your trip. I mean, if you're coming here from Calgary, coming here even from Vancouver, or let's say next year when it opens up and you're coming up from the States, right? You're committing to all that time to get here. All of those resources go into that trip, all that carbon's burnt here, and then you come and you're going to spend your first while trying to like sort everything out and know where the lines are, when really for not a lot, you know, most of our sorry, I just got distracted by the chat there. Yeah, so when you come, you're connecting with us, and then if you get like a group of 6, it's like 140 to 150 per person for a group of 6, and we're going to show you the ins and outs of all of the zones that are good, and we'll cater for the groups. You just tell us what you're all about, we find out what you're all about, and then we take you to the goods, and we're there every single day. So all of our guides, whether they're in Revelstoke at Capow or they're with us at Kootenai Backcountry Guides, they're all locals who ski here and have skied here for 15, 20 years and gone touring and know all of these zones. So you're just, in the end, you're saving yourself a whole bunch of time and effort and making your experience that much better.
Yep.
And we're going to know the snowpack too. So we're going to be all over that. We're going to be all over the safest ways to go and do things.
Killer. Totally agree.
Yeah, and have more confidence stepping out into more aggressive terrain when it's appropriate, because we're on top of what's actually going on down there. And yeah, like I think there's a few different reasons you might want to hire a guide. Judson hit a lot on it with, you know, going to the best stuff you can each day. And even if you have the skills to enter the backcountry on your own, like if you're on a vacation and only have a few days, you don't want to spend a ton of time poring over maps and guidebooks and maybe going out for the first day and hacking through something. It's less than ideal. Getting your bearings. You can just make sure to really make those days count and enjoy the rest of your vacation, right? And then, of course, there's also people who probably shouldn't enter the backcountry without a guide based on their skill set, especially into any kind of avalanche terrain. And there's a really big intermediate group of people too that, you know, they take their avalanche courses. In Canada, we have the ASTs, or in the US, your AIRI courses, for example. And those are great and all, but there is so much more learning that has to happen beyond that, right? And spending a day with a guide gives you a really good brain to pick, talk about a lot of stuff when you're actually looking at terrain, traveling through it, feeling the snow. You can continue that education and, you know, try to discover why the guides are doing what they're doing.
Yeah,
And
we're all
apply that
about
to your own
helping
touring.
people get better at their touring. Spend a day with a guy, level yourself up. We'll give you all the tips you can handle on a day.
Killer. Awesome. And then kind of last thing we'll touch on is just local guidebooks. I think these are great resources. I've got, pretty much my entire library is all guidebooks. So tell us, quickly about like the local guidebook here, and then we'll get into the terrain here.
Oh yeah, so you see the one for Revelstoke here, Dougie's book. That's kind of the cover for the first 2 editions, and he's just coming out with a 3rd edition now. He just ran a Kickstarter for it. I don't know how easy it will be to get a book if you didn't do the Kickstarter, but it's worth looking into. I would do it sooner rather than later because there might only be 1 or 2 prints of this thing. Previous editions have been a little bit hard to come by. But yeah, geobackcountry.com is his website and where you'd look into it. The newest edition has 2 zones, the Rogers Pass North and South, and associated maps. So he has annotated maps, and all the route numbers on there correspond to the guidebook. Lots of terrain photos, a good varied resource. Yeah, descriptions, maps, photos, kind of usual fare, but I think it's really well done. I actually helped him on this most recent book a bit. I sent him a bunch of photos for that one and helped him with some new routes and things. But yeah, he is obsessive about it and does an incredible job of that thing. I can't.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. Yeah.
Killer. And Judson, I know Backcountry Skiing Canada covers more of the lines down in your neck of the woods, right?
Yeah, so they have a few different guidebooks. They actually have one for the coast and whatnot, and it's a great resource. And then they print maps that also link up with the guidebook. Same idea as what Dougie does. It's great.
Killer. Yeah, big fan of what those guys are doing. So wanted to give them a shout out too.
Yeah, and Backcountry Skiing Canada's website's an amazing resource. He has all kinds of stuff going on there. He's fantastic. Yeah, Brad Steele constantly churning out free information, doing gear reviews, safety tips, all kinds of stuff. He's awesome. Check out backcountryskiingcanada.com.
Yeah, buddy. All right, let's get into it. I'll turn it over to you here, Adam. I know Revelstoke, this is your backyard, so take it away, buddy.
Cool. Yeah, this is actually one of Ben's pictures, I think, from one of his trips to BC that was kind of formative to him, like a decade plus ago. But this is in Canuck Creek. This is
from the visitor center when we had no clue what we were doing. We were like, all right, well, we're already parked here. Let's go look for some learn about the area in the visitor center. And this is just kind of directly behind the visitor center there. So
one good thing to note in this photo too, that's the highway corridor where, the Trans-Canada Highway and the railroad runs down there. As you can see, there's a lot of super avalanche prone terrain that feeds into that valley. Hey, I'll kind of talk about the importance of that and their whole avalanche control program and what you need to do to work around that once we get to the Revelstoke section.
Right. This is looking towards Golden, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's right.
Sweet.
So I'll highlight a few main zones here. There is a ton to ski around Revelstoke that is not these zones, but these are some of the most popular and accessible ones. So yeah, first off, just off the side of the ski resort, RMR as we call it, there is quite varied touring as well. So yeah, the base of the resort is super low at about 500 meters in town, but Mackenzie Peak's about 2450, and you can get lifts to take you a little bit above 2200. So first of all, on a day when freezing levels and temperatures are an issue, sometimes starting your day nice and high is really, really appealing. And a lift ticket costs less than a helicopter. So that can be a great reason to come here. There's also pretty, I'm reluctant to call anything super beginner friendly in the backcountry, but there is some pretty benign terrain close to the resort. If you head in the right direction, some low angle tree line and some gladed forest runs that you kind of see what you're getting into. You do some short laps. It is a good place to go if you don't have a full day or the fitness to log a lot of vert. You can still put in really big days here too, especially off the backside of the resort. There's larger, more committing, more challenging avalanche terrain, bigger runs, and they require some, kind of advanced route finding to find your way back to the resort at the end of the day. So as with anywhere outside of the resort boundary, there's no avalanche control, right? You need to treat this as any other piece of backcountry. You still have your Avi gear. You're not making assumptions about the snowpack. based on proximity to the ski resort or anything. But yeah, it does have pretty good variety. There's some cool chutes and even like a pretty major couloir. There's a big Alpine face when stability is good. Yeah, it does have quite a bit to offer, I think, and is a good starting point if you're coming here and not sure exactly how far in you want to dive into the backcountry. Yeah, this is a good picture of some of the ski touring that's pretty easy to get to. So a lot of what you see here, you could walk to within, about an hour, maybe hour and a half tops from the resort boundary. Pretty easy access. The foreground you could get to in maybe half an hour even. And they used to run cat skiing out here. You can see an old cat road in this photo on the left, but they've ceased doing that for the last few years, and it's all purely ski touring access. So yeah, you see the goat in the back there and Kokanee Peak on the right. Pretty good, varied tree-liney terrain and low alpine terrain here that you see, but there's a bunch of great glade skiing too. Yeah, these are just a few random shred shots from that area. These are, yeah, it just shows the character of the terrain more than anything, and the fact that we usually have some pretty nice snow. This one was skiing off the backside a ways. So yeah, we're starting to begin our way back towards the resort. This was a guided day I did several years ago. What you see in the background there would make for a long day from the ski resort. It is possible if you're fit, but that's starting to get pretty far back in there. That's the whole valley behind the ski hill. Cool. And then one of the premier areas I would say around Revelstoke that people go to for their touring is Rogers Pass. And that's also referred to as Glacier National Park here in Canada. So those two terms are pretty interchangeable for us. And that's about halfway between Revelstoke and Golden. So yeah, like I mentioned, on the west side of the Selkirks is Revelstoke, the east side is Golden, and where the highway crosses the Selkirks in the middle is Rogers Pass. So that's depending where you're going, 45 minutes to an hour drive from either side to get to your skiing. And this is better if you have a higher level of fitness as well as a general higher level of backcountry savviness. There is bigger and burlier terrain here, and a lot of it has a longer approach to get to it. So there are some runs where you can start gaining your vert pretty well right from the car, but a lot of them you kind of go up lower angle valley approaches where you're slowly gaining vert, and then you put in an hour or two into your day, and then you start climbing up the steeper terrain that you're actually excited to ski. So without a minimum baseline of fitness, you're gonna have a hard time getting into much. There's a few things you could do, but it's kind of limiting. So I would say you should probably be able to tour uphill at least 1,000 meters if you're gonna go here. If you can do 1,500, that's even better. But yeah, if you can put in between 15 and 1,800, you can go to a lot of the summits and ski some of the true epic alpine runs here. There is some tree ski in there, but it's not quite as, it really shines in the alpine, I think. If you have good visibility, Rogers Pass is the place you want to be. One tricky thing about ski touring in this area, as I kind of alluded to earlier, is that they do a bunch of bombing for avalanche control, just in an effort to protect the highway and the railroad. So this has nothing to do with stabilizing slopes for skiing. This is more just something we have to work around as backcountry skiers and split boarders. Yeah, historically, skiing wasn't even allowed at the pass because of their whole blasting program. But now they have something called the winter permit system. And they have a couple zones that are posted as either open or closed every day, depending on whether or not they'll be shooting. So they primarily do this with a howitzer. They bring in the military, and they have a few different stations where they put their gun and yeah, start blowing up the mountain basically. So it's really key that you understand how to find out what's open and closed, and to get permits, basically taking an online quiz to ensure that you understand how this whole system works. Otherwise, you risk a few things, right? You risk getting blown up, you risk getting an enormous avalanche because they triggered one, and you also risk access to the area. Like if the military starts to get cold feet about not being able to trust that there's no skiers in the areas they're shooting, it is possible that they would go back to the old way of things and just outlaw ski touring in that area completely again. So really critical that you get online, just type in a search for Glacier National Park winter permit system, and that'll kind of get you off on the right track. You can get an annual permit so that every day you can just check online. You don't actually have to go to the Discovery Center. Your alternative is to daily go to the Discovery Center, which you see a picture of here, and get a daily permit. And during COVID now, that's a bit more of a pain than it once was. It's still possible, but it might not always be. They might choose to stop access at some point too. So that online permit is really the way to go. You have one you got to carry with you, one you got to put on your car, and you also have to get a National Parks Pass just to pay for parking essentially. So there is a bit of red tape you have to go through to ski here, and it's important that you educate yourself about that before you show up, or else you're either gonna make a big mistake or just spend your morning hacking through the system when you could be out shredding. Yeah, I guess there's Ben. Hey, we got a little model of Canuck Creek, one of the more popular ski touring areas, just behind the Discovery Center. There are a few areas at Rogers Pass that you don't need a permit to go to because the blasting never impacts it in any way. And some of the terrain in Canuck Creek falls into that category. So due to its proximity to the main parking and the fact that some of it's always open, it does see a lot of traffic, but it's actually quite avalanche prone. Oh, that isn't even Canuck Creek. I'm misleading you. But anyway, anyway, sorry, picture's gone. You still need to treat that place with a lot of respect. There's a ton of big overhead major slide paths that run into that area. So just because it's popular doesn't mean that it's necessarily safe. It's a pretty wild place, actually. There's also a bunch of photos in the Discovery Center. If you flip through their binders, they have great terrain photos annotated with run names and things. This can provide a lot more detail than a topo map or a satellite image or Google Earth might. So yeah, they're a great resource when planning your day. This is also all available online. So if you type in just Glacier National Park Winter Terrain Atlas, you can get all this in a PDF. And I keep that on my computer, and I even download a PDF of that to my phone. It's rare that I do it, but it's comforting knowing that I can always whip up these photos. And if I'm not so sure if my line goes or if I'm on the right one, something like that, I can kind of verify for myself in the field too, since I've saved it ahead of time. Really helpful stuff.
I took this photo on a Palm Pilot a decade ago.
Oh my God. This shows some of the awesome Alpine up at Rogers Pass. This is from the Asulkin parking lot, one of the peaks out there on Avalanche. But yeah, you see Sir Donald in the way back there, kind of the back left. That's the tallest peak we have in the pass. That's a little under 3,300 meters. So you can't really ski from the top of that one, but that gives a good upper limit to where you can ski from. And then the parking lots are going to range anywhere from about 1,000 to 1,300 meters. So yeah, there's a lot of possibility for long runs there. A lot of your days there just have one or two big descents, as opposed to, near Revelstoke Mountain Resort, for example. That's usually a bunch of shorter laps. Bit of a different flavor here. Ooh, yeah, here. Yeah, you can just tell there's a lot of really epic ski terrain, right? This big steep ramp here in the shade. Obviously an intimidating feature sometimes, but the day we went, this entire snowpack was just facets to the ground. It had been super cold and clear for a long time. So no real layers in the snowpack, some pretty good sloughing, but we do actually I don't want to say frequently, but there are many times during the winter when we do end up with good midwinter stability windows. So that usually pairs with good surface conditions too. And this was definitely one of those days. This was in deeper. So we went from some of the normal trailheads at Rogers Pass up and over one of the passes, way into, down the next valley, back up the other side, camped for a couple nights, and went on a bit of a tear back there a few years ago, and a really prime window in April. We had good weather, deep snowpack. Yeah, this was out in the Dawson range. So this is in far. This would be a quite an advanced objective. And, you know, if you're going here, you already know what you're doing, basically. But this trip was actually ridiculous. My buddy in the green helmet there is a climbing buddy from California, and he was just in Revelstoke for about a week. So we spent 3 days back here. We went on an absolute tear, skied some stuff I'd been thinking about for years, probably bagged a few first descents, came back to Revelstoke, took 1 day off, and then ticked a handful of the true epics at Rogers Pass and day tours too. That was his only impression of Revelstoke. And it was, you know, some of my, probably, they all fit into my top 10 days of touring around here. I can't believe that's when he decided to show up. He's so lucky. This is that same day, just accessing that ridge. But yeah, the trend you see in the back there is not easily accessible from Rogers Pass. That's getting in real deep into either, yeah, that's basically multi-day territory back in there. But man, is it ever impressive. A lot of glaciated features out in Rogers Pass. Like I mentioned, you know, when you have the viz, going there for the Alpine is kind of what it's all about, I think. This is relatively accessible in the day tour at Rogers Pass. Lots of great couloir skiing. This was obviously kind of just a neat day too, with the inversion layer busting through above the clouds. This was Christmas Day, actually, several years ago. Not a bad one. Yes, so then this is all taken from a spot that's quite commonly skied, actually. So this is actually a pretty standard view that you might get skiing at Rogers Pass. The place I'm standing when I took this photo, people really routinely go to. It's a popular zone. So yeah, this type of stuff is all pretty close and accessible, I would say. Same. I don't think all these pictures need a ton of words. I think they speak for themselves quite well. Yeah, again, that picture on the left is not that far from the highway. Pretty attainable stuff. When conditions are good, and if you have some route finding skill. Like, that is not a line that's in the guidebook, right? There's a lot to ski that is not laid out explicitly for people.
Before we move on here, we did have a question in the chat. Could Abby, tell us a little bit about photography in this zone? And, Lance, feel free to give us a little more info there. Do you want us to address like photography in the national park, or what? What do you mean there? And Abby, feel free to answer if you know what he's talking about.
I mean, I could talk about photography for hours. I could talk about the mountains out there for hours. I don't know which direction to take it just yet. Maybe we'll wait for a little bit more detail if there's anything in particular he wants to know about, aside from the fact that it's obviously stunning terrain, and definitely a bit of a push, as these guys mentioned. It's requires some fitness, and then when you add a couple, maybe 30 extra pounds of camera gear plus, it requires another level of fitness to get up there with that much gear. So the effort's worth it, but it's I don't know. We'll see what he says. If there's anything else I can chime into.
Yeah, Lance.
Yeah, maybe one thing worth noting while we're waiting for details here is because it's a national park, you cannot fly a drone. So I know, a lot of people are loving drones nowadays, both for getting pictures and videos, and even like scoping your line. Sometimes people have been using them in the right application to get some info about what they're standing on top of. But anywhere in the national park, drones are a no-go.
Yeah, great point, Adam. And on that note as well, if you're doing commercial, I don't know if there's any commercial photographers on here, maybe aspiring. You also need a permit in the national park for any type of revenue-based photography. So a great way to go about that is, again, to be lodge-based and just on the skirts of the national park. So yeah, well, keep cruising along unless we hear more, I guess.
Perfect. I think that's kind of, the drones are what I was going to bring up, and just, there is no commercial photography there. So Lance, let us know if you got any other questions, buddy. We're here to help.
Cool. And on the note of Rogers Pass too, that highway can be rugged at times. There's a lot of heavy traffic with trucks, with the snow, the avalanche control. Sometimes it's closed, whether it's avalanche debris or a car wreck, whatever. It is a road that's worth driving quite slowly and carefully, but despite everyone's best efforts, sometimes it ends up closed.
Might be the most dangerous part of your day.
Oftentimes, I would say that it is totally. And so there are days when it's really nice to not drive that highway. So yeah, skiing in the slack country, like we talked about, or the RMR backcountry, is one good option, but another one that we have close to town is Mount Mcpherson. So we have a cross-country skiing area, the Revelstoke Nordic Center, and that's where we begin for Mcpherson tours. It's pretty low. It's at 650 meters. So that's like half as high as going to Rogers Pass. So if you don't have good snow down low or good coverage down low, you might want to think twice about touring here. Sometimes it can be worth it if it's not perfect all the way down to 640. The bottom is kind of some approach vert, not the highlight of the day anyway, but generally you want to go here when you have a good snowpack and conditions at low elevations. Usually you're going to have to wait until maybe like late December or so before this fills in. January, February can be good. Later in the year, it starts getting real warm down low and it's not so good. So you do want to think about the conditions before heading here, I think. But it's a short drive. There's great touring. You can ski forest, slide paths, there's burnt trees, there's glades, there's some larger alpine features like low alpine stuff. And yeah, that lack of drive can be amazing sometimes. This is a really great overview photo of the area. So on the left there, the fingers, those slide paths are quite popular. Sometimes people just ski the lower portions when that's all they're comfortable with. They do tend to slough out quite a lot. There's usually a lot of small to medium size avalanche activity out of those guys. And you can actually go up one of them if you pick wisely and access the Womb, a larger slide path, get to the summit of Mcpherson. Off on the right, you'll see the Burnt Knob with a couple big slide paths. You can't really tell, but there's some old burnt forest and a bunch of kind of pillowy stuff in there. And the Fuzzy Knob has more just glades, normal tree skiing. So it's pretty nicely varied terrain, but you'll notice that a lot of these main ski runs are substantial avalanche paths, right? It's definitely, still pretty real terrain, like a lot of what we have around here, honestly. This picture came from a website called Beyond Our Peak. I think it's just awesome as an overview here, but you can check out his website. He had more info on some specific routes, as well as just more photos to give you a sense of what that area is all about. So yeah, between these three zones, those are some of the highlights, I would say, and most commonly skied stuff around Revelstoke. But there is so much more, especially if you're going to start diving into the world of helicopters or snowmobiles or willing to bushwhack a bit. But if you can, read a map, use Google Earth, use some of the other resources just to travel the mountains in general and are comfortable figuring it out for yourself instead of following a line in a guidebook, this is really just the tip of the iceberg. There is a ton more out there. But at the same time, this is more than enough to satisfy you on your first trip to Revelstoke or even your first winter living in Revelstoke, I would say.
Killer. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Adam. You guys let us know if you have any specific questions here on Rogers Pass or any touring zones around the Revelstoke area. And I'll let Abby tell you a little bit about my favorite split fest, Canuck. We throw our own split fest down here in Colorado, Front Range Split Fest. There's also Silverton and Mount Baker and Bozeman, and we've got a lot of great ones, but man, I don't know that they compare to Canuck or the terrain that you guys have up here in BC.
Awesome. Yeah. Splitfest is also near and dear to my heart. I've been going to it for a while. I spoke at it a few years ago, and this last year I had the honor of co-hosting the event with another member of Avalanche Canada. So Splitfest in a nutshell, if you haven't been to a Splitfest anywhere, it's a gathering of splitboarders, and the Canadian Splitfest or the Canuck Splitfest is really educational and community based, I would say. There's every evening there's speakers, there's get-togethers, there's trade shows, and like a pretty hefty, like stacked line of speakers. I would say this year we learned about like forecasting, which is pretty sweet, like being able to come up with your own long-term weather forecast. Adam was there speaking as well. We had a bunch of panels on mentorship and gear and all that good stuff. But yeah, the foundation of it remains the same. It's education, community, bringing us all together. Um, very in line with the Avalanche Canada mission to educate and unify backcountry users. And this year was digital actually. So I believe they're all live now, but the event was recorded. So yeah, feel free to check them out again on avalanche.ca if you want to brush up on anything that we spoke about at Splitfest. But yeah, it'll happen again next year, and hopefully we can all see each other and hang out like we did in these photos, not just on the internet. Hopeful for that.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, full disclaimer, these pictures are pre-COVID. So you can also see, this custom artwork here on one of these split boards. This is a prior board, I believe, with Free Spirit Sports. And I'm pretty sure Free Spirit still has one of these. I saw their new online shop just went up. So if you're looking to get, a Weston, or even, you might have to pry this out of the owner's hands there, or get it from me first, because I think I might have to add one of these to my collection. But it's got some killer local art on it. Just an amazing event. Like Abby said, I can't say enough about this amazing event. So, with that being said, it looks like we don't have any, giant questions coming in. Let's kick it over to Nelson touring zones. I saw we had a lot of Nelson people here. So Judson, we'll kick it over to you. This is your backyard. Tell us a little bit about some great zones around Nelson.
Hey, welcome to Nelson. So we'll cover around Nelson, around the Whitewater Backcountry. We'll get into Kootenai Pass. We'll talk about going over to Roslyn, and then we'll talk about Caslow, New Denver. Yeah, a couple things. The mountains down here a little bit smaller than Adams Peaks. I'd say like our tops are like Weimer around Nelson is 2,400. As you go further north, they do get bigger. So you're taking about, for Americans out there, it's like 2,500 to 3,000 feet off of the peaks. We tend to get a little bit warmer weather. So when it is warm, it's a little bit better to go north, because Revelstoke tends to get a little bit colder than us. And if the flow comes from the northwest, it's going to Revelstoke, and from the south, we tend to get a bit more when it comes from the south. Pretty reliable in Nelson to have 250 centimeter base, 100 inches. Right now we're sitting at 250 right now. And, on our good years, we're hitting 350, 4 meters. So we do get the snow for sure. And when it hits a cold front, it's deep pow. And I love it down here. I love the towns. I love the vibe of Nelson, and the feel of the whole zone is great. And what it is a little bit different, it's a little bit more accessible. So, when you're going up to Rogers Pass, you got big days, you're starting at 1,000 meters. And when you're around Nelson, you're going to Whitewater Kootenai Pass, we can start our days at 1,900 meters of elevation. So it's a little bit more accessible in that sense. So yeah, here's some classic shots. We're known for our pillow riding, lots of varied featured forests all the way from Roslyn over to the Nelson Range. Lots of pillow lines, lots of steep tree skiing is what we're all about. We do have some Alpine, and I'll get into that with the individual zones. But yeah, known for the sick tree skiing. And so for me, this is kind of one of the things I'm working on a lot right now, is our community event called State of the Snowpack, run by Morgan Dinsdale, who came up here and started this community initiative. And Weston's been helping us out with sponsorship. But if anybody's out there, we're going to be working on a full sponsorship program. This is where we put guides like myself and others in front of the community to talk about what's going on in our snowpack. And this thing is growing legs. Last year we had lineups to get in. We had 200 people packing the bar and lineups to get in, people getting turned away. And then this year, sadly, with COVID, we had to do it indoors and had to run it online. But our videos are garnering like 2,500 to 4,000 views of like people watching us talk about the snowpack. And so our community and us in particular, I am super into sharing my snowpack info. So if you do want to check me out at all, head on over to my Facebook page. I got tons of safety info out there. I'm making videos all the time, educating people for free. And we're firing up our YouTube channel where we're putting all of the content of basically what our guides are seeing out there and showing people in real time what's going on in the snow. So they're events just like you're seeing right now, except we're getting into the details of what's going on in the snowpack, and I'm super pumped about it. It's awesome.
Yeah, buddy.
Whitewater, backcountry, intermediate to expert. I would say the one thing, you know, it's pretty tricky here to find intermediate skiing right around Whitewater. It is there, but one of the things is it's pretty steep. So a lot of people get like, whoa, like, okay, it's full on here. It's a lot of steep tree skiing. So I say intermediate. There is some intermediate skiing, but you want to know where you're going. If you are intermediate, you want to take a course or hire a guide to figure out your way around first. We have trees around Whitewater. There is some Alpine. There's not a heck of a lot. You can see it in the background there on Weimer Peak, but it's the Alpine is relatively limited in the Kootenays, at least around the Nelson area. As you go north, just north into Kokanee, and we'll talk about that up Calzone to Denver, there's tons of Alpine. South of Nelson, not much, mostly tree skiing. Whitewater starts at 1,600. That's the base of the lifts, and the summit of Weimer Peak, which is the peak in the background, is 2,400. And yeah, nearest town is Nelson. Nelson's an amazing town. People love it here. It's got a great vibe, super cool. Lots of amazing restaurants. We're known for our restaurants. It's I forget, it's pretty much the most restaurants per capita anywhere in North America. And it's like they're all trying to outdo each other. You can go on a trip here and go out for an amazing dinner every single night and be like, what is going on? It's like 10,000 people here, and the restaurant scene is like a city. It's absolutely awesome. So yeah, and the vibe at Whitewater is amazing. People love it. It's great ski hill. I fell in love with it right away. The backcountry out of bounds there is super, super amazing. Right on. So lift access touring zones, that's what we're all about. The lift access zones around Whitewater are all time. You've got numerous creeks and drainages running just around Whitewater with lifts taking you right up to 2,000 meters. So a zone like this is accessible within 20 minute skin. So you can be skiing here 20 minutes off of this ski hill, no problem. Yeah, and then more shots of our kind of Alpine. This is back of Scobbs Knob here. But yeah, there's a whole drainage in behind Scobbs Knob. And you can see sort of the idea of the terrain that you're going to get there. And here's some shots of Weimer Peak, and the shot on the left is looking up at Weimer Peak. And this ridge here spills out off of one of the sides of the resort, and Weimer Bowl overhangs the ski hill. So the ski hill is literally right beside this bowl. So all you have to do is skin. In 5 minutes, you're actually on this ridge, and you can go up this ridge, and there are shots that ride back down. I don't like to call it, it's not slack country. It is full on backcountry right away. And you can hit up these bowls in a solid, like you can be in Weimer Bowl in a 45-minute skin, no problem. And Prospector is within 20 minutes, and you're riding, you know, 1,500-foot run down to the bottom. So it's pretty epic. And if you look on the shot on the right, you're standing on the ridge that kind of separates 5 Mile Creek from Weimer Bowl. So that's a pretty good overview of basically the terrain that you've got within spitting distance of the lifts. So that is the main thing, is just the access that you're just getting right away. And then here's a shot of stuff that's a little bit further out. So if you have a bit more savvy, you can get back into zones like this. This is a photo of me on a sunrise with my buddy Saeed, and this is April, and nobody out there, whole bowls to ourselves. There's a massive burn outside of Whitewater, so there's literally thousands of acres of burnt forest with perfectly spaced open trees. Pretty nice. And so Kootenai Pass, going down south. So Kootenai Pass is south of Nelson. It's about an hour drive from Nelson. Nearest town is Salmo. I got a question here real quick about the snowpack. Less complex than Colorado? Yes. Definitely less complex. But what we're seeing with climate change is the snowpack is becoming less predictable, and there's more weird stuff going on. We're getting more and more random warm-ups. We're getting more rain events going on here, and it's changing the structure of our snowpacks and making it harder to predict things. And I'll get more into that in the Roslyn section. But Nelson snowpack is going to be pretty similar to what you get up at Rogers Pass. Maybe a little bit less snow, but pretty similar. We deal with surface hoar. That's our main enemy here, is surface hoar and wind slabs. Kootenai Pass, skill level intermediate to expert. I would say Kootenai Pass has more gentle, intermediate, reasonable stuff than Whitewater. It's the more entry level zone to get into. There's no Alpine at Kootenai Pass. It's very, very limited. Trees are going to the tops of all the peaks there. Most peaks top out around 2,200 meters. Salmo is your nearest town. A lot of people will stay in Nelson, but Salmo is literally like 30 minutes, and it's way sleepier than Nelson. You're going to have no nightlife there. And there's a cool town in between called Weimer. And if you're ever in the area, you pretty much have to go to the Weimer Hotel. So if you go to Kootenai Pass, it is a definite must that you go to the Weimer Hotel for après beers, because that is a legendary stop. Yeah. And Kootenai Pass, the thing that is amazing about it is it's a lot of short, like the fall lines aren't super long. So a lot of the runs are like, 250, 300 meters. But what it does is it makes these cool tours where you're at your car, you're up in 45 minutes, you ski a run, next tour up is 45 minutes, another run. You can link 4 or 5 runs in a day where you're not doing this one giant long climb, which is what you're confronted with at Rogers Pass. It's a lot easier to just 45 run and go, and you can do these cool loop tours around here. Really awesome zone to go to. Shot off of the Camel's Hump at Kootenai Pass with Monk's Peak in the background with the highway down there. And then Cornice Ridge, this is the classic spot. It's pretty right there. You can be, if you're quick, you can get on top of Cornice Ridge and be riding in 45 minutes and be right where these this skin track is going up this ridge. Yeah, just another shot of like beautiful broad ridges with some of the epic tree skiing you're going to get off to the south there. And yeah, Roslyn. So Roslyn, BC. So this is where I first moved to. And so when I was I was 12 years old, I read an article about a guy who actually moved to Roslyn and actually hid out in a stairwell of a hotel. and rode there every day, and that was his home. And that's kind of how I got tuned into the Kootenays. As I was 12, and I was like, that sounds like the coolest thing that's ever happened to someone. So I was like, I'm going to do that when I graduate high school. So I actually did. I moved to Roslyn as soon as I left high school, saved up my money, moved to Roslyn to ride Red. And Red Mountain, if anybody hasn't been there, it is my favorite place to be on a powder day. I've been heli skiing. Heli skiing is amazing. I love it, but almost as good is Red on a powder day. It is phenomenal there. Roslyn's this cute little town. The riding is so sick inbounds at Roslyn, BC. You got to go and check out Red. Highly, highly recommended. The elevation, so it says I put down 2,400 meters because that's the highest peak there, but typically the peaks there top out at 2,200. Here's the challenge with Roslyn. It's more feast or famine versus Revelstoke or Nelson. Roslyn probably gets 25 to 35% less snow than the Nelson range, and that gives it a little bit more of a it gives it a little bit more of a tricky snowpack that I've been finding. And it was not like that when I first started and moved here. It was more like Nelson, and climate change seems to be affecting Roslyn a little bit more. But the tree skiing around Roslyn and Red Mountain is absolutely epic. Super long runs, great place. Really cool town. There's a shot of Old Glory. So that's a bit of a mission from the hill, but that's kind of the biggest mountain around Red, and that's taken from inbounds. And the Red Range stretches out towards Old Glory. So if we move on to the next shot here, you can see the ridge lines and those steep trees that kind of the ridge lines extend on forever in the Roslyn range, and it's ridge, 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 and really awesome tree skiing. It's steep. One of the jokes we'd have was it's steep and toe deep because it doesn't get as much snow, but it sure is steep. So if you like steeps and you like features, then Roslyn is your place. From Mount Neptune, beautiful shot from Lauren. Thanks, that's awesome. Big Red Cats is there. So Mount Neptune is on Big Red Cats terrain. There you go. Taken from Big Red Cats. So Calzone, New Denver. So now we're moving more, this is kind of more like Rogers Pass territory. The mountains are quite a bit bigger up there. Calzone, New Denver Pass, somebody was asking about the Zinkton Resort, so we'll get into that. This is the pass that runs, it runs between Caslow and New Denver. It goes up to about 1,100 meters. And the highest peak is like 2,900 meters up there. So the mountains are quite a bit bigger than Nelson. You can see generally you're putting another 500-600 meters of elevation on top of things. I said advanced expert because the tours are so much bigger up there versus Nelson as well. And yeah, Calzone, New Denver, beautiful towns. The Slocan Valley is gorgeous. Really amazing towns there. And Mount Brennan. So here's a shot of, some of the tree skiing. I can see Ben drooling right there, looking at those spines and pillows in the trees. This is in the valley on the way up to Mount Brennan, and Mount Brennan's huge. And there actually is a lodge that I have access to that this line and these trees are within probably 5 minutes from here, from the lodge, 10 minute-ish skin, and you're standing here. And this lodge is actually on private property and they don't advertise it, but we run AST. So we run Avalanche Education courses out of that lodge. It's fully hydro, hot and cold running water. They got a hot tub there. So if anybody wants a type of course where you go into terrain like you're about to see, that's kind of one of our main things that we're doing right now, is running these AST courses up here. Right on. So here's a shot from the summit of Mount Brennan. So you can see how there's so much more alpine there than down south in Nelson. Summit of Mount Brennan here. This is on a course, and we summited the 2,800 meter peak on an AST course. Super cool. gorgeous up there, amazing. They're also standing and looking down. I'm the guy at the end there with the red jacket looking down, and this on a there's a couloir on the backside of Mount Brennan that if anybody is seriously into couloir skiing is one of the raddest couloirs you'll see anywhere. I forget the vertical on it. I think it's 5,000 feet couloir, and it's 50 degrees. So all the way. It's a super rad line. Yeah, another shot of the ridge lines of looking at Whitewater Peak in the background. Epic up there. London Ridge. So London Ridge is this is the ridge, and it is just west of Mount Brennan, and it's just up above the town of New Denver. And this is kind of an area. It's a little bit of not necessarily controversy, but debate going on because they're talking about putting a backcountry only ski resort in here called Zinkton. And so there is a proposal right now to put a single lift up here and allow access to it. So the guy who's working on it put it through for discussion this fall. There was quite a bit of debate back and forth on it. I'm not 100% sure where it is right now with things. But anyway, that is something that might happen down the road that would be super interesting. Is to have that. And yeah, I'm seeing people against it. I totally understand. People saying just leave it as it is. Yeah, 100%. I hear you all on that. But we're all in the discussion and trying to just discuss things and figure things out. And yeah, and hopefully the community, and if the resort gets approval, can come to some type of terms where it is kept open for everybody. And that's my main thing, is that I never want to see anybody have restricted access anywhere, because that would be really not great. London Ridge does have a lot of great riding there. One of the challenges is that a lot of off of London Ridge, a lot of it's solar. So there is some good east lines. You can see some beautiful bowls. The bowls in this photo are from the east. So they're facing east, but a lot of the other skiing is off to the south. It makes it more challenging to ride the north because it's a massive day. So you can do loop tours and whatnot around there, but to get up the whole south, it's like a 4,200 foot approach from the bottom all the way up to the top. And then to ride the other side and climb back up, you're talking about a huge day. So it is a mission to go do it. Lots of great skiing around there, and I'll be forefront in the discussion anytime it's open. And if anybody wants to discuss the Zinkton project, it's out there in the open. And the one thing I would say about Dave, who is the project guy who's trying to put it on, is that he is very open to talking. There's been a lot of projects and tenure applications, and the owners just shy away and don't talk to our local community. And one thing he has been doing is he has been open to discussion and listening to public input. And I really respect that. Right on.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks for
Okay.
all that, Judson. Man, you were right. I am drooling over those pillows. You know me well. I could spend a whole season in that zone, buddy. It's beautiful. Just awesome. So again, guys, thanks so much for sharing your experience and your expertise with us. Anyone else in the chat, let us know. I did want to give a quick shout out to Kootenai Split Fest. Another great Split Fest. You guys are just doing it right up there, man. So this one will be all online, and we've already had Canuck Split Fest this year, but Kootenai Split Fest is March 5th through the 7th. So definitely check that out. KootenaiSplitFest.com, at Kootenai Split Fest. You can get a hold of them. I know they're doing a few different talks and things like that. The in-person stuff isn't going to be going on, but big shout out to Nelson Brewing, Ripping Giraffe, and Backroads Brewing for being the sponsors. I know Weston, we're gonna get involved as soon as we can, and hopefully get up there next year to be there in person. So just wanted to give those guys a shout out as well. And now we'll kind of get into some other zones to explore. We're not just gonna touch on, the zones we've been over. We will give you a little bit of homework here, but we're kind of getting close to that time. So we're just going to kind of give you a couple more shots here to get you stoked, and start letting us know if you do have questions. Type down a question there in the Q&A. We'll try to answer them as they come in, but we're getting close to that 1.5 hour time limit. So I'll kick it back over to Adam here. Let us know. I mean, I know you've got a couple more shots here, but there's just a lot of mountain ranges there in BC. We can't cover them all.
Yeah, so I mean, most of what we talked about tonight between Revelstoke, Rogers Pass, all the Nelson area stuff was in the Selkirks. The first 4 that you see there, the Selkirks, Monachees, Purcells, and Caribous, those are all collectively the Columbia Mountains, or people will refer to that area as the interior. So it's kind of the middle of British Columbia's mountains. As you head west, you get to the Coast Range by Whistler, and out east you have the Rockies. So that's transitioning into Alberta. That's over by like Lake Louise, Banff, etc. So really, we've just focused on a pretty small slice of it all. It is my favorite slice of it all. I'm a little bit biased, but with Anywhere, you do get a snowpack that varies a lot from the ocean to the more continental areas, right? The terrain in all of them is awesome. But on the coast, you tend to get, warmer temps, huge snowfalls, avalanche danger that's quick to rise, but also quick to fall. But with those warmer temperatures, you do end up with snow that's usually a bit denser and more rapid settlement after a storm, meaning the powder might not stay as fluffy for as long. Don't get me wrong, it's still awesome. There's absolutely nothing wrong with shredding out there. There's some great days to be had. But it is a bit of a different flavor than what we have out here, and a very different flavor from the Rockies. So the Rockies are more representative of Colorado, say. So that's more of your, basal facets and depth hoar, usually a hard slab on top, really long lingering persistent avalanche problems out there. But yeah, we really only just kind of skim the surface. What we're talking about in the middle is kind of a nice balance in my mind. We still have persistent problems with surface horror a lot of times, but they tend to not last the entire season. And we got some deep snow and really high quality snow. But there's lots more to explore. Heading east in the spring is usually the play.
Yeah. Rockies in the spring. It's amazing. Love it.
Yep. Colder, higher, hangs in there a bit later.
Yeah, that's high season in the Rockies. Like,
mellow.
yeah, I'd say like mid-March on. I don't usually even think about going to the Rockies before then. And sometimes it's just incredible conditions over there in our Rockies come mid-April.
Totally. Yeah, this is just more of my backyard in Revelstoke. This is, non-guidebook area, just kind of parked on the side of the highway, bushwhacked through a bunch of thin cover for a while, and found ourselves skiing out here. But yeah, just, a sense of what's out there that you won't find in the guidebooks. Same. Yeah, not a guidebook, not Rogers Pass, just damn good snow. Super blower this day. Lots of playful terrain, as you can tell. Yeah, just unreal.
Funny, I leave holes like this all over my home mountains.
Yeah, but I landed on my feet and made a hole that big. You make them landed on your back, I bet. Hey, Ben?
No. Not why they call me Hot Tub Hilly.
Yeah. Nah, I kid.
Hilly.
I know you got it in you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this is just beyond the areas I've talked about. This was kind of some deeper snowmobile access, camping by the sleds. This was a huge run, a big steep entrance off of a peak, long glacier run below, just drains fall line all the way to the valley beneath. I think it's like a 6,000 foot run or something silly. So these are just some of the kinds of adventures you can get into if you've got the skill set out here to push kind of, beyond the guidebooks. Learn to use a map, Google Earth, maybe pick up a few other useful skills along the way too. And there you are.
Yeah, and there's a shot again. So this is Mount Carlisle and the Kokanee Range just north of Nelson. And one of the cool things is these alpine larches we get in the Kokanee and Nelson Range makes for incredible subalpine tree skiing. And yeah, another shot of a zone. You're not going to see that in a guide's book. Mount Carlisle, there's a lodge there called Mount Carlisle Lodge. Beautiful, amazing backcountry place to go to. Yeah, and this is in the Goat Range. So Goat Range is the range north of Kokanee, near Calzone, New Denver. So this is going to be right by Mount Brennan in the Calzone, New Denver Pass area. And I don't see the because I just can't see my thing on where this one's located. Is this one of Lauren's shots?
It is.
What does it say on the caption on where that one is? Awesomeville, Canada, basically.
Right.
Yeah, it just says Lauren Powers. I'm not sure, but it's
London Ridge.
Yeah, with London Ridge. There you go. Awesome.
And Lauren wanted us to make sure and mention the Hazel Hut. Big shout out to Lauren for all these amazing photographs too. She does a killer job up there in Nelson. But yeah, she mentioned the Hazel Hut. So maybe
that's located right at the top of the pass, on the top of the Calzone, New Denver Pass there. So if you're looking for a cool place to stay and explore that zone, go to the Hazel Huts. And Dogtooth Range, so Purcell's. Now we're moving over into the Golden Zone here.
Beautiful. All right, I think that pretty much wraps up all our awesome imagery. Maybe we'll stay on that one. That's a prettier shot than my end slide. But you guys let us know if you have any more questions here. We'll give you another few minutes here to chime in. If you have any specific questions for Judson or Abby or Adam, let us know. Otherwise, thank you guys for all tuning in this evening. We're just so stoked to have you, and just really love doing webinars like this. So check us out every Thursday at 6 p.m. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipe. Next week, we've got Rocky Mountain National Park here in Colorado. Another amazing area. Just kind of our mountaineering zones here in Colorado. But man, BC, you guys, I'm chomping at the bit right now, Judson. You're right, man. I can't, I was more disappointed than most probably about not being able to come to Canuck Split Fest. It is what I look forward to every single year, and really coming to see you and Nelson was off my list this season. So it's a bummer, but it's just one more year of getting pumped. So I got lots more homework to do now. So
And I just got to say that to everyone too. Like, we in Nelson here, we just miss everybody. We miss all our American friends. I know we got, like, cheers to all you guys. We're missing our friends to come and travel. Even people from, Calgary, we're not really encouraging people to travel to our small mountain towns from places where there is COVID right now. We're doing our best to respect that. Like, right now, Nelson has no COVID cases, and we want to keep it that way. And so this thing, you watch this, salivate over it and come when we ask you and invite you back, please, because we just want everyone to respect that.
Absolutely. Well, awesome, gang. I don't see any too many questions rolling in here. So again, Adam, maybe, let the people know what you're up to. Let them know how to get a hold of you. And thanks again so much for being a presenter, man. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Of course, Ben. I'll fire my contact info to the chat box in a minute here, but adamzok@gmail.com or just adamzok on social media. I'm pretty easy to hunt down. I will definitely make an effort to get back to questions one-on-one too. Don't hesitate to reach out, whether it has to do with this talk or not. I'm just happy to help people out who are, trying to become better backcountry skiers and riders, or, need help planning a trip in BC. If you do want to book guided trips too, you can reach out to me via those same avenues. Rogers Pass, other stuff in Revelstoke, heli drops, sled access, a lot of touring lodge stuff. So the blanket, the Golden Alpine holidays huts, etc. Or heli skiing, like the variety out here is pretty impressive. So kind of whatever you're after, I can help get you set up. So don't be shy whether or not you actually want to ride with me or not. I'm happy to help.
I had one more quick question from Nathan. He says, any good stuff north of Revy towards Micah Dam?
A lot. Yep. I'll leave it at that.
PM at it. We'll keep that a little private conversation. How about
the amount of lines and mountains there is absurd.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Abby, thanks so much for being here as well. We're stoked to kind of get you involved here. And Abby, let us know, what else you're up to. How can people get a hold of you? How can they chat photography maybe? Any new photographers coming up?
Yeah, for sure. I'll pop my Instagram into the chat box once we're done. But yeah, I welcome all questions, photography, terrain, not area specific pros like these guys for interior, but definitely the coast mountains around Whistler and the Duffy. That's my home turf. That's where I hang out most of the season. And then if you want recommendations on lodges as well, I've made a pretty big dent in the Backcountry Lodges of BC list for photography. So always happy to chat. I love to just assist and grow this community whenever and however I can. It was a bit of a fly on the wall tonight, but it's awesome to be a sponge to these guys. So yeah, happy to keep the mentorship flow open. If anyone has questions, just drop me a line. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being here. And Judson, the man, the myth, the legend. Thanks again, sir. It is so good to have you here. Let the people know what you're up to, what you got going on, how they can tune in to State of the Snowpack.
So you can just check out stateofthesnowpack.com. That's where that is happening there. And there's actually an Instagram channel as well. And we're broadcasting everything generally on Kootenai Backcountry Guides on our Facebook page and on our Instagram channel. So that's kind of where most of our stuff is going on. And now we're just launching YouTube. So I'm getting all my stuff up on YouTube as well. So we're also presently making a whole resource section on our website where we're going to turn our website into a whole safety catalog of safety info, linking videos and all kinds of safety info. So just come and check me out at KootenaiBackcountryGuides.com. That's our website, and we're out there. We got 12 guides working here, ready and willing, just trying to contribute positively to the ski culture here. That's our goal, is to just create this openness in the culture where it's about sharing. Sharing is caring. And that's what I'm all about. So yeah, I will put up my stuff in the chat for people to reach out, but just KootenaiBackcountryGuides.com.
Killer. Awesome. Well, again, thanks everyone for attending. Big thank you to the panelists. Make sure you tune in next week for Go Explore Rocky Mountain National Park. We've got expert panelists from Get Her Done Publishing, the Funny Farm in Alaska. The new owner of the Funny Farm up in Haines is actually the guy who wrote this guidebook 10 years ago. So we got Mark Kelly, also Dustin Dyer from Kent Mountain Adventure Center. So definitely tune in next week and every week. We still have a few more of these going on, and all the previous episodes are available on our Facebook channel, just Weston. Also our website, westonbackcountry.com, and our YouTube channel. So you can find it pretty easy. And with that, we hope to see you on the skin track one day, Adios.
Yeah. Bye, everyone. Thank you.